Have you ever met someone who seems fine on the surface? They smile, they work, they say, "I'm okay." But behind that calm voice is a mind quietly collapsing. They never ask for help, not because they don't need it, but because they don't believe they deserve it. There's a strange kind of strength in people who carry their pain alone. They walk through life wearing invisible armor, polite, composed, even funny sometimes. You'd never guess that the same person who comforts everyone else goes home at night to face battles no one knows about. They've learned to hide it well, not because they're strong, but because they've been disappointed before. When they were younger, maybe they reached out once, and no one listened. Maybe they cried a piece and someone told them, "You're overreacting." Maybe they asked for help and were met with silence, judgment, or worse, betrayal. So they stopped. They built walls where trust used to be. Now every time the pain grows heavier, they whisper to themselves, "I'll deal with it." They convince themselves they can handle everything alone. Because asking for help feels like weakness. And weakness in their mind is dangerous. Psychologically, this behavior isn't just stubbornness, it's protection. People who refuse to ask for help often suffer from something called learned self-reliance. It's a coping mechanism developed after repeated emotional neglect or betrayal. When you grow up believing that no one will show up for you stop expecting them to. So these people create a private world inside their minds, a world where they can control their pain, their healing, and their breakdowns. They become masters at pretending, masters at smiling through pain, masters at saying it's fine when nothing is. They overthink every word before they say it. They analyze every tone, every silence, because to them vulnerability is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. They've learned that opening up means risking disappointment again, so they hide. They build quiet prisons inside themselves, decorated with fake smiles and forced laughter. But here's the truth that no one tells them. Being self-sufficient doesn't make you invincible. It makes you invisible. The world doesn't notice the strong ones until they collapse. And when they finally do, everyone around them says, "I had no idea they were struggling." Of course not. Because these people never show it. At its heart, the psychology behind this is rooted in fear of burdening others. They believe their pain will inconvenience people, that their sadness will make others uncomfortable. So instead of speaking up, they swallow their emotions and turn pain into silence. It's not pride, it's guilt. They don't want to be too much for anyone. This often connects with childhood experiences, where emotions weren't validated. If a child grows up, hearing "stop crying" or "you're fine" or "other people have it worse," they learn to suppress their needs. As adults, this turns into chronic emotional independence, the kind that looks strong but feels like drowning. They may appear calm in public, but at night their thoughts turn into noise. They replay conversations, question their worth, and tell themselves not to bother anyone. They keep everything inside until their mind becomes too crowded to breathe. You might know someone like this. Maybe it's a friend who always listens to you, but never talks about themselves. Maybe it's a sibling who jokes about everything, because humor feels safer than honesty. Or maybe it's you've learned to stay quiet because you're afraid of being misunderstood. You've built walls because they feel safer than open doors. But what you don't realize is asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage, because it takes strength to say, "I can't do this alone." It takes trust to believe someone will listen without judging you, and it takes healing to accept that your pain deserves to be seen. They say time heals everything, but for people who never ask for help, time doesn't heal them, it hardens. Every time they suppress pain, it doesn't disappear. It buries itself deeper. It becomes part of their wiring. Their brain learns that emotions must be hidden, controlled, silenced, and slowly, they forget how to speak their truth. You can recognize them easily if you look closely. They're the ones who say, "Don't worry about me." The ones who change the subject when the conversation gets too personal. The ones who comfort others but never cry in front of anyone. They look stable, almost too stable. But that stillness often hides exhaustion. They carry invisible weight. Not because they want to, but because they think no one else could handle it. When they look in the mirror, they don't see someone worthy of care. They see someone who must endure. They believe that needing help makes them weak. But the truth is, That belief is the very thing that's breaking them. Psychologists call this self-silencing. It's a behavioral pattern where individuals suppress their feelings to maintain peace externally and internally. They'd rather harm themselves emotionally than risk rejection from others. They keep quiet not because they don't have something to say, but because they fear their voice will make things worse. The origin of this silence for many. This behavior doesn't start in adulthood. It starts in childhood, with a single sentence, a parent saying, "Stop crying," a teacher saying, "Be tough," a friend saying, "You're being dramatic." Every phrase teaches the same lesson. Your feelings don't matter. So they grow up suppressing emotion to survive emotionally. And the older they get, the better they become at hiding it. When pain visits, they don't cry, they work. When heartbreak comes, they don't vent, they distract. When exhaustion hits, they don't rest, they push harder, because for them, emotional expression equals risk. And the world has never shown them that risk can be safe. The mask of strength. What's heartbreaking is how society rewards this silence. We call them strong, disciplined, independent. We admire their composure, their consistency, their calmness under pressure. But no one asks what it costs them to be that way. They're often the friend who checks on everyone else but receives only silence in return. The co-worker who never complains, so everyone assumes they're fine. The family member who keeps the peace, even when they're falling apart. They play the role so well that even they forget it's an act. Deep inside, there's a storm that never stops, a quiet ache that says, "I wish someone would notice without me having to say it." But people rarely do. Because silence doesn't make noise. Emotional exhaustion hidden behind control over time. Their control becomes their prison. They're always the calm one, the reliable one, the one others turn to. And when they finally break, when they finally cry, snap or isolate, people say, "I never thought they'd struggle like that." But they did. For years, their pain doesn't explode. It implodes. It becomes insomnia, anxiety, burnout, or depression that no one notices until it's too late. Because when you've taught everyone that you're always okay, no one checks if you actually are. And that's the tragedy of emotional strength. The stronger you appear, the less help you receive. The fear of burden. At the core of their silence lies a simple but powerful fear. Being a burden. They don't want to make others uncomfortable. They don't want pity. They don't want to see disappointment in someone's eyes. They think if they just keep it together, they're helping everyone, even if it destroys them slowly. But what they don't realize is that true connection is built on mutual vulnerability. When you never ask for help, you deny others the chance to care. You deny love the chance to exist. The turning point, some of them eventually reach a moment, a quiet night when the weight becomes unbearable. They look at their reflection and realize the mask doesn't fit anymore. Their silence, once their safety, has become their suffocation. And for the first time, they whisper something they've never said before: "I can't do this alone." That moment, though small, is monumental, because the first cry for help is never loud. It's a whisper into the dark, but it's enough to start healing. They may not tell everyone. They may start small, and a friend, a journal, a therapist, a prayer, and when they do, they discover something powerful. People can understand, people can care, people can hold space for pain without running away. The truth is, asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've carried too much alone for too long. It means you've reached the point of honesty with yourself. And sometimes, honesty is the most painful form of healing. Because when you stop pretending, the world doesn't always applaud, but your soul finally exhales. And that's where real strength begins. There comes a point when silence stops being comforting, when the quiet, once protective, starts to echo too loud. For people who never ask for help, this realization doesn't come suddenly. It sneaks in through sleepless nights, through thoughts that never stop, through moments where even breathing feels heavy. At first, they try to fight it the only way they know how, alone. They distract themselves. They work harder. They bury the feeling under productivity, humor, or control. But pain has a strange way of demanding to be felt. It doesn't leave just because you ignore it. It waits, patiently, until you have no choice but to face it, and that's when it begins. The slow, almost reluctant process of healing. The first step, admitting the weight for someone who's been strong their whole life, saying I need help feels unnatural, almost humiliating. It feels like tearing down the identity they've spent years building, because their entire self-worth is tied to being capable. But healing starts with admitting one simple truth. You can be capable and still need care. Sometimes that admission doesn't come in words, it comes in exhaustion. In the moment they stop pretending everything's fine. In the tears they didn't plan to shed. In the way their voice shakes when they finally say, I'm tired. That's the first door opening, quietly, hesitantly, but it opens. Relearning trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation. It's rebuilt slowly, like learning to walk again. For people who've been disappointed, the idea of relying on someone feels like walking barefoot on glass. They test it first. They reveal small things, minor frustrations, harmless stories, to see if the person listens without judgment. And when they do, something shifts inside. A tiny piece of fear melts away. This is how healing looks for them, cautious honesty. They don't pour their heart out at once. They open it inch by inch. They may still pull back sometimes, still apologize for being too much, but every time someone stays and listens, understands, doesn't try to fix them, they begin to believe again. Because for these people, love is proven not by words, but by presence. They don't need grand gestures. They just need someone who says, it's okay. You don't have to be strong right now. The power of being seen. When they finally start to let others in, something beautiful happens. They realize they were never as alone as they thought. The world begins to look softer. The silence that once felt like safety now feels like healing. Being seen, truly seen, is one of the most powerful forms of love. It tells them that they don't have to earn care, that their pain doesn't make them unlovable, that asking for help doesn't make them weak. It makes them human. In therapy sessions, in honest friendships, in quiet prayers, they begin to rediscover the forgotten language of vulnerability, and they realize that it's okay to fall apart, because falling apart isn't the end of strength. It's where strength begins to rebuild itself, the shift inside over time. They notice subtle changes. They start expressing instead of suppressing. They begin to say things like, I'm struggling today, without shame. They find comfort in silence again, but this time, it's a healing silence, not a lonely one. They stop performing perfection and start practicing peace, and one day, they surprise themselves by reaching out first, by calling a friend just to talk, by crying without apologizing, by saying, I need you, and meaning it. It doesn't mean they stop being independent. It means they've found balance, the ability to be self-reliant and open-hearted at the same time. That's real maturity, not building higher walls, but stronger bridges. A message for the ones who still can't speak. If you're someone who never asks for help, listen. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. You don't have to carry everything alone. There are people who will understand your silence, who will wait for your words, who will love you even when you have none left. You deserve the same care you give so freely to others. You deserve softness, rest, understanding, but without guilt. And if you've been let down before, remember, not everyone will hurt you the same way. Some people are capable of holding your pain without dropping it, but they can only help you if you let them in, not all at once. Just a little at a time. In a world that glorifies strength, vulnerability feels like rebellion. But the truth is, asking for help is one of the bravest acts a person can do. It's standing in your truth without fear. It's saying, I'm human, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Because sometimes the strongest souls aren't the ones who never break, they're the ones who finally decide to heal. There's a quiet kind of pain that doesn't scream, it doesn't shatter windows or demand attention. It just stays inside. The kind of pain that smiles politely when asked, how are you? And answers, I'm fine, even when everything inside is falling apart. For people who never ask for help, this is their daily act, a performance they didn't audition for, but learned to perfect, because in their world, suffering quietly feels more noble than showing weakness. But what they never realize is, silence doesn't protect you forever. It builds walls, yes, but those walls don't keep pain out. They keep healing out. The hidden cost of silence: when you keep everything inside for too long, it changes you. You start becoming distant, even from yourself. You forget what your real voice sounds like, the one that used to laugh freely, cry openly, dream loudly. You become the listener in every conversation, never the speaker. You become the helper in every crisis, never the one being helped. And while everyone sees your strength, no one sees your exhaustion. This is the hidden cost of silence. People think you're fine, so they stop checking in. They assume you're strong, so they stop offering help. And slowly, you start believing it too, that you shouldn't need anyone, that you're only lovable when you're okay. But that's a lie, a beautifully disguised lie we tell ourselves, because the truth, that we're fragile, human, and sometimes desperate for care, feels too raw to admit. Healing is not loud. When healing finally begins, it doesn't come as fireworks or miracles. It's quieter than that. It's the first night you sleep without feeling like you failed. It's the first deep breath that doesn't hurt. It's allowing yourself to say no without guilt. It's crying in front of someone and realizing the world didn't end. Healing for those who never ask for help looks like small revolutions, invisible to the world, but monumental inside. It's rewriting a story where strength isn't silence, but softness, where asking for help isn't shame, but courage, where saying "I'm not okay" becomes the most powerful sentence you've ever spoken. The people who understand without words. There are rare souls in this world, quiet, patient, intuitive, who can read the silence of others. They see the forced smiles, the tired eyes, the almost whispered, "I'm fine." They don't push. They don't pry, they just stay. If you've ever met someone like that, you know how healing their presence can be, because they don't need explanations. They understand energy, they don't need words. They feel the truth in the pauses, and sometimes healing begins not with talking, but with simply being seen. To the one who never asks for help, maybe you don't need someone to fix you. Maybe you just need someone to sit beside you and say, "I'm here." Take your time. That's love in its purest form, and when you finally feel it, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the steady, gentle kind, as something shifts inside you forever. The new kind of strength eventually. These people, the ones who once hid their pains, begin to redefine what strength means. Strength isn't smiling through everything, it's admitting you're not okay and still choosing to keep going. It's allowing yourself to need, to feel, to depend without shame. They stop being silent warriors and start being real humans. They stop pretending they're invincible and start embracing their humanity. They realize that no one was ever meant to carry the entire weight of their world alone, because the truth is, healing is not independence. Healing is connection. It's a learning that we are not weak because we fall. We are strong because we get back up. Sometimes with help, sometimes with hands other than our own. The closing reflection. If you're still the person who holds it all in, this is for you. You don't have to fight every battle alone. You don't have to keep pretending you're fine just to make others comfortable. You don't have to wear strength like armor when what you really need is warmth. Asking for help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you brave. Because it takes courage to say, "I can't do this alone anymore." And one day, when you finally let someone in, and even just a little, you'll realize that the world doesn't crumble when you stop being strong. It actually becomes lighter, warmer, softer. Because the truth is, we heal in connection, we grow in vulnerability, and sometimes the strongest thing you can ever do is whisper the words, "Can you help me?" You don't have to be unbreakable to be strong. You don't have to be silent to be respected. You don't have to be alone to be enough. Because real strength isn't in never needing help. It's in having the courage to reach out when you finally do.